welcome to another video. I'm going to cover what we did go over in class last Friday, which is the ninth. So what we did in class on Thursday was another run of hotspot analysis. By this time, actually starting from a point where the data is not giving you, the data given is not actually in the GIS format. So you have to work from manipulating that data, bring it into a GIS format, then performing the hotspot. So that is what I'm going to cover. So the data that I've given you for this particular on class, the modulo week number 5, the zip file actually contains, once you unzip the file, it contains this layer, and it contains a CSV file. So the CSV file is what contains the police crime data. So if you open that CSV file, you are absolutely going to see something like that, okay, where you have different fields, the dates, and then also you have the type of call, you have the codes, and then you have an X, and then you have a Y column. So that here, this two means that you can turn that this data into points on a map, or even using the location, the block number, you can geocode them and actually turn them into locations on the map. So that's what I'm going to walk you through, how to convert the data, because the reality of the thing is, if you started working with a fire department or a police department and they want you to do something like that, the chances are they are going to go into their card dispatch system, extract the data, and they may give you the data in either in an Excel format or a CSV format. And then you'll be like, how do I go from there? So this process will actually guide you through how to take a table and then convert the table to a feature class or a shapefile, and then be able to move it from there to do the hotspot analysis that we have. So here, as you can see, I've made a folder connection to, to, to the location of my drive. So let me get over there. So here, what we can do is we can actually go ahead from your ARC catalog. You can drag the CSV file over to your table of content. Okay, when it comes to your table of content, now what you have to do, remember that field did have an X and Y, so we can open up the attribute table over here. Although it's a CSV, we can still open it as, treat it as a table somehow. So we have an X and Y field. Now here, those X and Y values, if you take a look at it, they are between minus 90 and then positive 180. So that tells you that those X and Y are actually geographic coordinates. Okay, so that is critical to know. So what we're going to do here is we are going to right click on this guy on the table, and then there's an option that says display X and Y data. So because we have an X and Y field, that means we can plot it. So go ahead and click on plot, click on that. And now here you have to pay attention. See, the software already realized that the CSV file we have a column called X and a column called Y. So it does that for you. But the other thing you want to pay attention to is that the coordinate system that is giving you is not actually the coordinate system of the data. Here is giving you a projected data because that is the coordinate system that this layer, the data frame, is having. Because if you take a look at any of the district data and you go to source, you can see that it is a projected data for southern Pennsylvania. So that's the reason why when we right click and we go to display, it is giving you this. But we know from the data that it's supposed to be a geographic coordinate. So what you want to do is you want to edit that data and then collapse everything and then go to the geographic coordinate system and then scroll down to world and then scroll down to WGS 1984 and select that. Okay, so that's the coordinate system because we know that the coordinates values are between minus 90 and positive 90 and minus 180 to positive 180. Once that is done, hit on OK, and it will give you this little warning. It's pretty much saying that it's going to create an object ID field. So yes, OK on that. And then what the software will do is it will go ahead and plot all the data that you had in this Excel file. So here, if we go to that, it's going to give you the total number of points we had. That is the total number we have in the table. It has plotted all of them for you in a map. So now you have point data to actually start, that you can start to use for your hotspot. So what we did is that, remember I said if you plot a data, it gives you what is called an event layer. So an event layer is a temporary layer. It's not a permanent layer. So what we need to do to convert this guy into a permanent data is we need to export the event layer. Okay. Now, remember, this data again is in the geographic coordinates. So we need to project this data into a projected coordinate system similar to what these two layers are using. Now, there's a trick you can easily do that because we are going to export this data, and we know that the data frame is using the projected coordinate system. What we can do is that when we export this guy, this layer, we will just choose the coordinate system or the data frame, and the software will project it for us. So we don't actually have to go to the toolbox and then use the projection tool. You can use this method as well. So let's go ahead and export this. So right click, go to data, and then I want to export data. Now I'm saying we need to export it because when I plot an X and Y data, it becomes an event layer. And event layers are just temporary layers. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and then browse to my location. So here I have this folder. This is the folder I'm working in. And then here I'm going to call it incidents. That's 2013. Okay, let's save this guy. And now this is where I'm saying you can, so you see, when it's exporting, it says use the coordinate system as what? The same as the layer. If I choose this option, that means that I'm telling the new layer to have the same geographic coordinates. But if I choose the data frame, then I'm telling the software to convert that data into a projected coordinate system because I know the data frame is using the coordinate system from these two layers. So that is the method that I have to use, so I don't have to go and use the projection tools over here. All right. So click on OK on that. The software will now convert, export everything for you. And once it's done, yes, I want to add it to the data. So now I have an incident layer here, and now I can go ahead and get rid of the event one. So now I have a data which is projected. If I take a look at the coordinate system, you can see that it's also now being projected, right? So now I can go ahead and now do the hotspot analysis as we did the last time. So here we are saying if we need to build a hotspot, we first have to build using a model. So I'm now going to launch the model builder. Okay. And then there are a couple of things that we started doing when we started. We go to model properties. No, not diagram properties, model properties. General, we want to call this model, let's say 2013 incidents. Then a label, we'll call it, the label can have space, so 2013 incidents analysis. All right, and then we went to environment, and then in the environment, the key things that I said we should set up is the workspace. So click on the workspace, and then let's go to here. We want to point it back into our data that we are using. So I'm working in a folder called this. So here, this is where you want to point it to whichever folder you are working in. So knowing where you are keeping your data is as important as the processes that you're going to do. So browse that, and I'm going to put that one over there as well. And then I want to processing extent. Now the projection extent is where I wanted to use the police district boundary. So here I want to use that as the police not the stations, the crime by district. Then I don't actually need the raster one. I will check that one off. We don't need to do the raster one. All right, and then the next thing that we wanted to do was raster analysis. So raster analysis, I want to use the Mac, and this will clip up the rasters that we produce to the shape of the district. Okay, and then we wanted processing extent is done. The output coordinate system, we can use that, but this is going to be the same as the, if we choose that, then it becomes the same. If you leave it blank, you will use whatever data, whatever coordinate system that the input data is using is what it's going to use for the output. So let's do those ones, which are pretty much the processing extent. So select that, hit on values, and then you specify it to be the same as the crime by district, and then it will put these parameters there. The workspace, we browse to the geodatabase that we are working in, and then the raster extent, the max, I also choose to clip it using the crime by district layer. So hit on apply, okay on this, and then our model is now ready to go. So we said in our hotspot analysis procedure, the first thing we want to do is we want to drag in this layer, the one that we exported. Okay, drag that guy in here, and we wanted to create a copy of this data first, because the process of hotspot actually does modify the data. So we want to get a copy of the data first before we manipulate it. So we are going to bring this, and then ensure that under your customize your extensions, you want to make sure that your spatial analysis is checked on, because we will need it along the line. So now that I have this layer here, I'm going to go to management, go to features, and then you can see there's two copy features. Drag that guy over here, and now I'm going to now connect. So that's my connect to connect, and then set it as an input. And then this is going to send this output to the database that I'm working in, and then it's going to give it a name. So here you can see it's going to give it a name, feature incident 2013 underscore copy features. So if I don't want that, I can just say copy, and that will be the name. Okay, so I said when you're starting, just run it piece by piece. So right click this guy and then run it, and then let's make sure that that data gets run. Okay, so that is run, and then I can uncheck this guy, and then if I right click on the output and I say add to display, you should be able to see that the data is added. So that tells me that, okay, the first part of my model actually did work. All right. The second thing that we said we will do is that we want to use a tool called integrate, because if there are a bunch of points stacking on top of each other, we will want to snap them together, and then before we do the hotspot. So we are going to integrate. And the integrate tool is under feature class. So the same data management feature class, going to drag the integrate tool over here, and then you are going to connect this guy to this, and then go into the integrate tool, double click on it, and then here we say we want to snap by, say, 50 feet. So any incidents that are within 50 feet, we are going to snap it together, and here we can increase it to, so actually let's do this, let's snap to 80 feet. So anything that is within 80 feet is going to snap them together. All right, now remember we said that integrate does not create a new output. It goes into this data and then modify it. That is the reason why we had to create a copy of this data. Okay, so right click on that, and now let's run this guy, and this is going to do its job. And once that is done, Now we can move on to the next one. So here, this data has been modified. So it has snapped the ones that are close together within 80 feet. It has snapped them together. So when it's done doing that, then we want to go in and actually do a count of how many points were snapped together at each of those locations. And then we said to do that, we are going to use a tool called collect event. Collect event is found under spatial statistics. So if you go under spatial statistics, we are going to see a collect event. Drag it over here. Now remember, the output of integrate does not create an output. So the input actually is going to be this data, because this is the one that was snapped together. So click on that using your connect, click and then connect as an input. And then here we are going to double click on this guy. Take a look at the output name, is calling it. So here we can just call it incident 2000 collect event. All right, so that, and then we can just run the collect event. And once the collect event is done, then we can run the hotspot, and then I'll introduce you to a new concept of hotspot. Okay, so now this is done, we can add this to our display. So when we add it to our display, you can see that it does symbolize, let's check this guy off, and it does symbolize them based on the number of points that were snapped together, okay, at the 80 feet interval. All right, so that's good. So now, and this layer creates, so if you take a look at the attribute table for the collect event, it creates a field called I count, and the I count tells you the number of points that were snapped together. Okay, so now that we have that I count field, now we can actually run the hotspot analysis. So here we are going to go into mapping clusters, still under spatial statistics. We are going to go to mountain clusters, and then you can see we have the hotspot. So we are going to drag the hotspot over here, and then the input is going to be the collect event, and then let's use a select, double click on this guy, and then it's looking for an input field. The input field is going to be the I count, okay, and then the output is going to be your hotspot. Keep the rest default, and I hit on that. Now when we run this hotspot, this is going to give us the hot and cold zones in our data. So let's add this results into our map, and that will give us an idea which areas are hot and which areas are cold. Let's refresh this guy. So here the hotspot is showing you the areas in the city which have an increased dense of crime happening at close proximity, and then the yellows are the next, and then the blues are which are more dispersed or not close to each other. All right, now this is the hotspot. So in class I talked about what we call an optimized hotspot. So an optimized hotspot uses a different statistical method to calculate where we have hotspot and where we have cold, using what we call a fishnet. So it's just going to break the crime into smaller quadrants and then perform the analysis within those little quadrants. So what I did in class is I made us to test that one out. So drag in the optimized hotspot data, and then bring that guy over here. Let's drag that guy. Let's take this guys out a little bit. Let's bring this guy here. Good. All right. So here with the optimized hotspot, our input is still going to be the collect event. So click on that, run the collect event, and then let's open up the data. So here we are going to keep everything as it is, and then we'll just call this guy, change the name to crime incident 2013 optimize. All right, and then simply run that. And what that is going to do is it's going to give you a different look at how to analyze or visualize your crime data in terms of Hotspot. It's pretty much going to create a small cells, and then each one will either be hot or each one will be cold, and that will be a different way of looking at the same Hotspot procedure. So here, let's add the output to display, and then we can take a look at that data. So let me uncheck this guy, and then if you take a look at that, that gives you a different view of the data. You can see that it's broken the city down, the district down into smaller grade, smaller cells, and then based on the intensity of course within those cells, determine whether it's a hot zone or a cold zone, right? So that's one way of taking a look at the hotspot using the optimized hotspot. So if you take a look at the data, this is how it gives you, and it has the z-score, and then it does also have your p-value. So this is how the optimized hotspot works. Now remember, when we did the hotspot, after we got the collect event, we actually use the IDW to really convert the data into a surface. So as opposed to just leaving it the way we had, we actually created a smooth surface. So to do that, what we are going to do is we are going to go through to our spatial analysis toolbox this time, and then we are going to go to interpolation, and then bring the IDW over somewhere there. Remember, the input of the IDW is going to be actually our hotspot, right? So here, let's use this hotspot. Let's use the first hotspot that we did. So that is going to be our input. You can use the optimized one to do the same thing. That's fine. That, and then let's go double click on it, and then the z value field will be our z-score. All right, and then the output name, just call it IDW. Let's call it IDW, and then keep the default. Hit on OK, and then run. And when it's done, let's right click on that, add to display, move this guy away, uncheck this, and then the crime by district, I'm just going to make it hello. And then you can see my IDW, double click on that, go to symbology, I want the straight, change that, and then let's go to display, make sure that is set to bilinear, then hit on OK on that, and now this gives me my hotspot for this particular jurisdiction. So here we've gone through the process of hotspot, doing the hotspot again, but where we started was actually from a point where the data did not exist. So we were given a CSV file, and then we were asked to perform a hotspot. So what we had to do was take this CSV data, right, open it to make sure that it has an address or location field that we can use to turn it into geometry points. And in our case, we use the X and Y field, and those two X and Y's are the ones that we use. And then what we did was pretty much right click on it, go to display X and Y data. We ensure that those fields are matching the software, and then here we had to change the coordinate system to WGS84, which is a geographic coordinate system. So when we scroll up to geographic, and then we go to world, we can find the WGS84. We go ahead and then we plotted it. And then when we got the results, which is this data over here, this data resource data is actually an event layer, and I said event layers are all temporary. So what we had to do is right click on this data, go to data and export the data. And then after exporting it, so let's just do that. And then I said here, I'll show you a trick by choosing the coordinate system of the data frame. So make sure in your ArcMap, when you add in this data, you have the district data, and then you have the school data in the ArcMap first before you start doing this process. So if you have it already, then you can just use the data frame coordinate system, and it's going to grab that coordinate system from the data frame. So ensure that you have the schools and the police stations, and then the district boundary in your map before you start that process, and everything else followed exactly what we did the last time in class. So take a look at that and then practice the optimize hotspot. And what I expect from you from this data, so I ensure that you guys are watching the videos and learning, is I need you to reproduce this data. Now in your model, when you are done with the model, you can always click on auto layout, and then what the software will do is it will lay it out in a much more meaningful way. So what I would like you to do is go to the auto layout and then zoom out a little bit, and then take a screenshot of your model. And then also I want a screenshot of your final results. Okay, I want the screenshot of your whole ArcMap. And now here you can see that my ArcMap is not saved, which is not good. So let me go ahead and save it. So here I will say hotspot. No, I don't want that. I will say hotspot, and then I will call it, put it my name, say my name. So you can call it hotspot your name, and then save it. So for this particular lab, what I want you to ensure that you're able to do it is being able to take screenshot of your final IDW. So take a screenshot of that, and then also I want the screenshot of your optimized data. I want that as well. Let me do this. So take a screenshot of that, and then let me have it. Let me have that. Also, so a screenshot of the IDW hotspot, a screenshot of the optimized hotspot, and then I want a screenshot of the regular hotspot. Okay, so take those three and submit those, so I know that you guys actually watch the tutorial video and you submitted it. So for your tutorial video submission, those are the items I want. I want a screenshot of the model. I want a screenshot of just the hotspot. I want a screenshot of the optimized hotspot, and then I want a screenshot of the IDW. So those are the items that you are going to submit for the tutorial. And I'll send an email with the I'll set it up in your assignment as well, so you know what you're supposed to deliver, and then send it over. So, and I'll give you a similar data with the intention of you reproducing the same analysis for a complete different jurisdiction. So hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, bye.